Hello everybody, and today I'm going to be sharing with you how to take better photos in low light. Now, low light photography is probably every photographer's worst nightmare. The absence of light can really be quite a bitch. So today I'm going to be sharing with you 4 tips to hopefully make your life as a photographer easier in low light. Tip number 1, use a shorter focal length. This is to allow you to use slower shutter speeds or a longer exposure time to get the right exposure without having to pump up your ISO, introducing more noise into your image. This will increase the keeper rate of your photos when shooting handheld. Keeper rate means photos that are not ruined, caused by camera shake that result in motion blur. When you're using a long telephoto lens, any motion of the camera is amplified as opposed to using a shorter focal length. Should the camera pan or tilt, the movement of the overall frame is less drastic compared to using a telephoto lens. Using a lens with a built-in optical image stabilizer also helps a lot in this case. So next time when you need a slower shutter speed in low light, instead of zooming in to take a picture of your subject, use a shorter focal length and walk up to your subject. Tip number 2, use your other arm as a stabilizer. Of course, it doesn't always make sense to carry a tripod wherever you go, but should the need arise for you to use a slower than usual shutter speed, try this. Hold the camera in your right hand, put your left hand on your right shoulder, elbows up, and then just rest your camera on your elbow. Then you can simply look through the viewfinder and use your elbow as a resting surface for the camera, and this should drastically reduce camera shake. Your shot should be significantly steadier because your left elbow is taking the weight of the camera off your right wrist so that it doesn't wobble as much as you hold it. Using this technique, I was able to get a keeper rate of about 70% using a 16mm lens with a shutter speed of 1/8 of a second. Tip number 3, invest on faster lenses. Yes, this particular one involves money. However, investing on a lens with a much wider maximum aperture can really make a huge difference, especially in low light conditions. For example, a zoom lens with a maximum aperture of f2.8 compared to one of f4 is actually a whole stop of difference. That means double the amount of light. That means if I were to take a photo at f2.8 and I need to use an ISO of 3200, at f4, that means I will have to use 6400 ISO, assuming I keep the shutter speed the same. However, lenses with a wide maximum aperture doesn't mean they have to be expensive. For example, the 50mm 1.8 lens, which probably a lot of you already own, has a maximum aperture of f1.8, which is a lifesaver in low light, and it is one of the cheapest lenses you can ever buy. If you photograph a lot of events, you can probably consider investing on a f2.8 zoom lens as your primary zoom. If you're on crop, the 17-50 f2.8 zoom by Sigma. If you're shooting on full frame, the 24-70 f2.8L, that costs quite a bit of money. And if you're shooting on crop, you have the option of using the Sigma 18-35 f1.8 zoom lens, which is an absolute lifesaver in low light. And my last tip, this is a bit of a photography cheat. If you have to use a ridiculously high ISO to get the shot, convert your image to black and white. For example, here is an image shot at 51,200 ISO. You can see it is really ugly. There is a lot of noise. However, if I apply black and white to this, suddenly it's less bad. There's definitely still a lot of noise in there, but it's a lot less distracting compared to the color version. This is because by converting the image to black and white, you are removing all of the chrominance noise. This means you won't have little blotches of colorful noise that are ever so distracting, and you are left with luminance noise that resembles film grain. So this is a bit of a workaround to salvage a horribly noisy image taken at a ridiculously high ISO. Converting it to black and white makes it a bit more presentable. So those are my 4 tips for taking better images in low light, apart from buying a Sony a7S. So that is pretty much it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.